Hello, welcome, everyone. How are you doing today? My name is Remus, I'm a variety streamer. I stream off the beginning of chat suggest me, as well as I draw art, I do coding, and hopefully sooner or later, I will do 3D modeling for everyone here. And I really do need to catch up on my coding practice. So probably Thursday I'll start with like 1 hour coding, and then the rest will be like gaming and stuff like that. That's probably what I'll do. Anywho, hello, welcome everyone. Let me just make sure I view my stream through my phone real quick. There we go. All right, there we go. And also, as you notice, we do have new stuff on the bottom there that says stream avatars. So all you need to do is hit exclamation point join, and then you'll basically join, and you'll see that there is like a mini figure thingamabob there. So yep. Welcome. Hello everyone. Hope you're doing well. And that being said, let's get right into it. Believe we were okay. So I remember we were just trying to figure out the shade of the prop, but I think now we're figuring out is trying the glow of it, the glow of how it will glow. And I already figured how to do like glowing effect, like with traditional markers. But like for digital art, it's gonna be new. This is gonna be a challenge for me. That being said, let's get right into it. Oh fuck. All right. Come on. All right. And let's get the video started.
Our story begins inside of the Jedi Council chambers shortly after the first battle of Geonosis, a battle that saw over 200 Jedi travel to the dusty sand planet, and not nearly enough of them return. It was also a battle where many Padawans fought, including Anakin Skywalker, Barriss Offee, and many Padawans died there, including Loomis Atima, Tan Eustace, and Stam Reath. The gruesome battle put many things into perspective for the Jedi Order. It was clear that they ignored the Separatist threat for far too long, and as knights sworn to the Republic, and being so heavily involved as they were in this first battle, it seemed inevitable that the Jedi now get inserted into the war as generals. And although it has been generations since the last war, where the Jedi
we actually use an airbrush for this.
Mace Windu was certain, in his stance, that the Jedi must help protect the Republic. But shortly after the survivors returned to Coruscant, a handful of Jedi Masters that lost their Padawans in the battle approached Depa Billaba, asking her to lead a coalition to the Jedi Council, asking to have all Padawans excluded from the war. Up to this point, Depa fully intended to finish her Padawan Caleb Doom's training on the battlefront, but as she spoke with these Jedi who lost Padawans Loomis Atima and Stam Reath, she saw the toll that trying and failing to protect a Padawan while also trying to fight in a huge battle could take on a Jedi. She'd taken Caleb as her Padawan very recently, and deep down, she knew the boy was not ready for war. Depa would speak to Luminara Unduli, an advisor to the Council and master to Barriss Offee, along with Obi-Wan Kenobi, newly promoted to the Council, master to Skywalker, and both of them would agree that there is no reason for Padawans to be thrown into war. So, Depa would indeed go to the Council with the masters who lost Padawans on Geonosis, and with the support of Kenobi, this coalition of Jedi would convince the Council not to put Padawans into the war until they are promoted to the rank of Jedi Knights. Yoda and Plo Koon were among the Jedi who were quickly on board with this. Mace Windu and Ki-Adi-Mundi argued that the Republic needs as many soldiers on the battlefront as possible, and it would be easier for Padawans to learn with first-hand experience. But in the end, the Council agreed that it's not fair to these Padawans to throw them into a war that most of the Knights don't even understand, and a new system would have to be set up so Padawans could still train under their masters while staying mainly in the Coruscant Temple. The first order of business was finding any Padawans who were ready to become knights and promoting them immediately. This group would include around 20 total Jedi, and it was headlined by Anakin Skywalker, as he and Obi-Wan both agreed that Anakin was ready to become a knight and a general in this war.
Ooh.
Anakin's talent was undeniable, and these Jedi were promoted
Okay,
to
that's
knight
interesting.
and prepared for war. And although an exact count was hard to be counted upon, there were a couple thousand Padawans varying in age and talent when the war would begin. And in order to try and ensure that they all get legitimate training with their masters being sent into war, these Padawans would be put into training groups for the time being, based on age and perceived talent with the Force. One of these groups would include some of the most promising Padawans in the galaxy. It would be Ahsoka Tano, Barriss Offee, Caleb Dume, Cal Kestis, Gungi, Nadar Veb, Varen Bar, Trilla Sunari, and Shah Gi. Among this group, Barriss and Nadar were heavily considered for early promotion to knight, but Masters Luminara and Fisto stepped in, saying that both Padawans need a bit more time before seeing the battlefront. And like this group, most of the Padawan training groups
okay, this is interesting.
members, and when any of their masters returned from battle for any amount of time, they would spend that time on Coruscant, training the entire group in sessions. With 8 to 12 Padawans in each group, Jedi Master Jarek would be in charge of coordinating Jedi missions to ensure that at least 2 masters of each group were on Coruscant at all times. And for this specific group, that meant that Luminara, Jaro Tapal, Kit Fisto, and even Anakin Skywalker, among others, would rotate time on Coruscant. And almost immediately after the war began, Anakin would be assigned to Ahsoka by Yoda, as Yoda wanted Anakin to learn to train Padawans in order to eventually learn to let go, and also to ensure that the boy does not spend too much time in the terrible war. And with everything finally set up, the war would be in full swing within weeks. The first battles would be on Dantooine, Mon Calamari, and Christophsis, and one of the first known effects of not having Padawans in this war would quickly be found out. On Dantooine, Mace Windu, Jaro Tapal, and Depa Billaba were fighting. On Mon Calamari, Kit Fisto led the assault, and in Christophsis, Anakin and Obi-Wan led the way. In each of these campaigns, Jedi who would have had Padawans by their side instead could only focus solely on the battle at hand. There was no stress for Depa, Tapal, Fisto, or Skywalker about keeping a young Jedi safe, or worrying about what a young Jedi may see in battle. Instead, it was all about winning. And with the Jedi being able to just focus on the clones and the battle at hand, it was an advantage to the Jedi and to the Republic. Now, there were certainly some battles where having a Jedi Padawan would help, but in cases like Christophsis, Anakin just dove deeper into his own power to make up for moments where a Padawan would have been needed. It was a brutal war. Jedi Knights and Masters saw more people and worlds suffering every single day, and without Padawans, some of these Jedi would push themselves further than Jedi teachings would allow them. Some would touch the dark side, including Skywalker and Billaba, and Jedi like Obi-Wan and Mace Windu would be troubled by this, slowly coming to wonder if any Jedi should participate in war. But they couldn't stop now. The war was in full swing. The overall impact of Padawans keeping Jedi Masters balanced and grounded in what's truly important was underestimated. But as the terrible war moved along, day by day, week by week, the Padawans on
Alright, so this is actually interesting.
The group,
The
including
effect
Ahsoka,
of...
Barriss, Caleb, and Cal, among others, was easily at the top of the rest.
So, with this, the effect of having, I have that replay on. Alright. So, with the effect of the actual, like, airbrush, it actually looks really good for the glow. Sure, it's jank, but this is a start, and if I'm gonna learn new techniques, I'll learn along the way. Right now, this glow also, with this glow, I also wanted to keep the silhouette of the actual, like, model, and just let see how this is being held. This is more of a, what is it again? I guess you would say it's more than one of the shields where it is using that special like magnet no, not a magnet, but it's more a fuck, I don't know. I actually don't know about this, but hopefully it's actually like, oh, looking good. All right. Okay, this is actually really good.
To their Padawans, and every day, the group would imagine being out on the front lines, cutting down droids, working with clones, saving planets from the evil separatists. 𝙂𝙬𝙤𝙬 and Cal Kestis would sometimes pretend to be Grievous and Obi-Wan, dueling on the bridge of a ship, hoping someday to get a real crack at the droid general. Being so far from war, it was hard not to feel like they were
let's see what we could do
something
for the
meaningful.
actual...
The group would overall love when Anakin's training rotation came upon them, and they wouldn't exactly love when it was Luminara's turn. And although Anakin was reluctant at first to be a Padawan training master, he knew it was the path to becoming a Jedi Master, and he quickly bonded with these young Jedi, seeing a lot of himself in these Padawans. Their eagerness to learn and to grow was inspiring, and among the group, Anakin and Ahsoka had the best relationship. In training sessions, Anakin would lead the group through saber
having
exercises,
glow in this?
and also have the 501st fire stun rounds at them. This wasn't exactly approved by the council,
Okay,
but the Padawans agreed
this
with
is
the
actually
tale,
looking
as
very
this was
good.
some valuable experience. Jedi like Luminara would be the best at leading the
I'm
group
switching to
through
clouds real
meditation
quick.
exercises, finding their balance and calm, even in the face of war, if the time ever comes. Jaro Tapal and Depa Billaba would bring the group of Padawans off-world, not to war, but into Republic worlds that needed supplies. Overall, the system of rotating masters to train groups at a time was working well, but out in the galaxy, more Jedi were dying every single day. Some were losing themselves to darkness, dying or abandoning the galaxy, and Mace Windu decided that the Order needs more soldiers quickly. So, Mace would lead an effort to begin promoting Padawans to knighthood prematurely. This would start with 1 to 2 Padawans from each of the 200 or so groups. And in Ahsoka's group, the Padawans would be forced to say goodbye to Nadar Veb and 𝙂𝙬𝙤𝙬, as they were selected to become Jedi Knights. Veb was the Padawan of Kit Fisto, 𝙂𝙬𝙤 the Padawan of Depa Billaba, and although Depa wasn't sure about this, wasn't sure if he was ready, she decided to listen to Windu, deciding it had to be done. And being Padawans of Council Masters would help the argument to elevate them to Knights. Barriss Offee was held back, as she was actually outspoken about the war in general, talking with any Jedi who would listen about why this war is wrong for the Jedi, so she was a Padawan for now. And as Caleb left, and he and Cal shared one final day of laughing and having fun together, everything seemed great. Cal once again pretended to be Grievous, but this time, Caleb said he was strong enough to take on Grievous himself. Cal said that he was so jealous of Caleb getting to go fight, and Caleb just told his best friend that he's sure to see him out there in no time. Caleb was immediately assigned to the Battle of Megiddo, with his former master, Depa Billaba, and also former Padawan Nadar Veb. Caleb and Nadar were both excited as they jumped to hyperspace in the Venators. The clones respected them, and they both couldn't wait to fight. But in just a matter of hours, they would be dropped into Megiddo, the wind and the snow, freezing the breath of every clone and Jedi, and as they entered the battle, Caleb's heart was pounding in his chest as the gunship doors opened, revealing the chaos. For months, he'd imagined the heroism, glory, the thrill of igniting his saber in defense of peace. Instead, what greeted him was horror on a world of banking and not much actual civilians. Distant screams were swallowed by the explosions of blaster fire. Commander Gray shouted over the noise, but Caleb barely heard him. He gripped his lightsaber tighter, his knuckles white, and as the gunship that dropped him off rose up, it exploded, throwing Caleb to the ground. His ears rang. Blood was trickling from his head. Depa helped him to his feet, telling him to stay focused. Around him, clones were shouting orders, dragging wounded away. They were missing limbs, some of them. They were screaming at their brothers through the snow, firing towards invisible targets in the fog. Nadar Veb landed beside him, charging ahead with his lightsaber flashing against the storm. Caleb tried to follow, but a hail of blaster bolts tore through the clones around him. He rolled to the ground, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He saw one trooper clutching his gut, another's helmet rolled through the snow. This wasn't anything like his training. Towering spider droids were marching through the haze, blasting down near him. Caleb realized he could no longer see Deppa or Nadar anywhere. He didn't recognize any of the clones near him. Caleb felt alone, wildly swinging his lightsaber. A super battle droid emerged through the fog, hitting Caleb in the shoulder before a thermal detonator ripped the droid apart. Again, Caleb was thrown to the icy ground. He panicked, crawling into the wreckage of a small Republic base with just a few walls and a shattered command console left standing. Inside, wounded clones were laying in rows.
Yeesh.
The young Jedi pressed his back against the wall, closing his eyes. He thought being a knight meant he was ready for anything. He tried to meditate, to calm himself, as Master 𝙂𝙚 and Luminara had taught him. But something else was now arriving. A CIS shuttle suddenly came crashing down just outside the base. From the ramp came droid reinforcements, and then 4 glowing lightsabers ignited. General Grievous was here, and he charged forward with a loud snarl. Caleb froze. The clones around him raised their rifles, but Grievous cut them down with ease. And then Grievous turned his yellow glowing eyes right at Caleb. For a single instant, Caleb Doom saw his training, his dreams, his masters, his friends, his childish fantasies of heroism. It all crumbled before the reality of this war. From behind the base, Deppa 𝙂𝙚 and Nadar would return, looking for Caleb. They looked inside of the base to see the young Jedi, hands shaking so much that his lightsaber slipped from his grasp and fell to the ground. And then Grievous lunged, laughing. Nadar screamed out in anger and despair. Deppa closed her eyes in anguish and realization, and she had to pull Nadar out of this battle, ordering a retreat. Grievous was here, and Grievous has won. When they arrived back in the temple, Cal Kestis was waiting excitedly as Nadar and Deppa were dropped off. He wondered where Caleb was, so he ran to Nadar, but Deppa stepped in, telling Cal the hard truth. Caleb fell in battle. Nadar was taken to the medical center, and Cal was left feeling numb as the reality of war set in for him as well. Ahsoka and Barriss both came to their friend, trying to
Should I
comfort
do
him,
glowing on
knowing he
this or
lost his
just
best friend.
no
Deppa
glowing?
𝙂𝙚 brought Nadar to the medical area, making sure he was fine, and then she went up to the council, where she'd called a meeting. In this meeting, Deppa 𝙂𝙚 told Mace Windu and the council that she was stepping down after Megiddo. She just watched Caleb, her former Padawan, die in battle quickly. She knew, deep down, he wasn't ready, and she failed to step in when he was promoted to knighthood, solely to go die out there. Deppa told Mace and the others that this war is pushing the Jedi to lose what they're meant to be. In service for a republic that is so clearly broken, they're sending children to their deaths. Deppa said she cannot be a part of this council anymore. She walked out, and for the first time in this year of war, the council began to wonder if perhaps fighting in the war was the wrong thing for the Jedi to do entirely. Had they just initially sent Padawans in, they may not have seen this, but training Padawans and then sending them into war without any experience, it was really taking a toll. The death of Caleb would ignite a fire as well that was already growing within Barriss Offee. She grew up learning from Luminara about how the Jedi were meant to be peacekeepers, not soldiers, and deep down, Barriss wondered if the Jedi had already lost themselves to the darkness. She wondered if they were the villains in this war by siding with the Republic instead of being neutral. She would work with her best friend Ahsoka to try and send a message. Barriss was definitely more radical, but Ahsoka helped to balance her out. The two of them would often sneak away, deep into the temple basement, where they could discuss protesting this war without anyone overhearing them. Over time, because of them,
It doesn't really
groups
look
would begin
good.
protesting their promotions to knighthood.
Besides, so
Caleb was far from the only Padawan to be prematurely sent off to war, only to come home in a casket. Padawans,
alright, there we go.
and Barriss's message, were refusing knighthood by this point, and as the council saw this, it helped them to see that they were indeed wrong. Yoda was actually quite pleased with the young Jedi, and in his own reflections, he saw that the Padawans were leaving the Jedi way much better than the Masters. And so, slowly but surely, the Jedi would remove any Jedi from war who were not at least 20 years old. Luckily for Anakin, he just made the cut by a few days. And for the Jedi, this was just step one. With Deppa's help, the Jedi were putting together a month-by-month plan to eventually only have Council Masters in this war. First, everyone under 20 years was pulled out. Soon, only Jedi Masters would be fighting. And eventually, only council masters. The more this war dragged on, and the more the Padawans stood up for what is right, the more the council pulled back, and this quickly became a huge issue for Chancellor Palpatine. He would quietly have the media begin painting the Jedi as cowards, but in polls and overall reactions, it became clear that the people actually supported the Jedi pulling out of war to become neutral and try to find a peaceful end to the conflict. One of the main reasons that Palpatine was orchestrating this war was so that the galaxy would see the Jedi as a power-hungry cult prolonging the fighting. He was supposed to be seen as the peace party, not the Jedi. Something huge had to be done to push the Jedi back into war. So, Palpatine came up with a plan, recruiting a temple guard that was being groomed to someday be the leader of the Inquisitors. Palpatine and the guard would work on bringing some demolition droids into the Jedi Temple, disguised as maintenance droids. These droids would secretly be branded with the logo of the CIS, and the plan was to have the droids blow up the Jedi Temple generator room, killing as many Jedi as possible in the explosion and framing the CIS. This would give the Jedi no choice but to return to the war, and the plans would get underway. As the maintenance droids were being flown into the temple, the guard would override Coruscant and temple security using Palpatine's security override code. And meanwhile, as the droids were being smuggled into the temple, the entire council was either out in battle or in the Chancellor's office. Palpatine had called the council here so they could not interfere with his plans to bomb the temple. And Palpatine was just discussing the Jedi leaving the war, acting as a neutral party, waiting for the explosion. But meanwhile, in the temple basement, Ahsoka and Barriss were doing one of their secret meetings, but this time, Cal Kestis and Trilla Sudari were here as well. They were just talking about how happy they were that the Jedi were leaving the war, when suddenly they heard someone approaching. The 4 Padawans would hide, peeking out to see a temple guard ushering 4 demolition droids into the generator room, and they all had CIS logos. The 4 Jedi would bravely look to each other, realizing what was going on. Barriss quickly whispered a plan, and the 4 of them would get to work. As the temple guard began punching in Palpatine's override code for the temple generator room, a code that the Jedi didn't even know existed, something went wrong. The doors to the generator room did not open. Instead, 2 huge blast doors closed shut behind the room. The temple guard ignited a saber, looking up to a nearby vent to see it was cracked open. Someone small enough to enter that vent was here, and from the main doorway, Barriss and Cal emerged, lightsabers ignited. The guard almost laughed. Padawans against him. He spun his lightsaber, telling them their bodies will be lost in the coming destruction. Barriss and Cal readied themselves as the guard swung at them. The 2 Padawans fought well, but the guard was strong, chosen by Palpatine for a reason, and he would knock both to the floor with the Force. He raised his saber for a finishing strike, but before he could swing down, burning hot steam erupted from a nearby pipe, hissing violently. Trilla Sudari dropped from above, scorching the guard with the steam with the pipe she just cut. The guard fell, blinded momentarily, and out of the haze, Ahsoka Tano would ignite both sabers, flipping out of the vent, slashing across the guard's chest armor, throwing him into the wall. The guard used the dark side to recover, swinging back at these Padawans, but he couldn't see. Ahsoka dropped low, sweeping his legs, while Barriss and Cal pushed through the Force together. The impact sent the guard crashing into the blast doors. Trilla held her saber just above his throat, and the guard fell unconscious, as the group looked to each other, agreeing that this was for Caleb. Across the city, Mace Windu was in the meeting with Palpatine when his comlink beeped with the emergency signal. Palpatine smiled to himself, knowing his plan must have worked. But as Windu took the call in the hallway, he was instead speaking to Tera Sinube, who just spoke with 4 Padawans. In the basement, a temple guard was subdued, found with 4 demolition droids. But worst of all, the code punched into the override security console it belonged to Chancellor Palpatine. Windu's stomach dropped. He gathered himself, then stepped back into the office. Mace told everyone, including Palpatine, that a temple guard was caught trying to bomb the generator room, but he has been subdued. The surprise and tinge of anger in the Force could be felt by every Jedi in this room as they all turned to Palpatine. Mace then dropped the bombshell that Palpatine's code was being used to access the room. The Jedi slowly stood up, grabbing their lightsabers. The Council had begun to suspect that someone in Palpatine's circle was working with the rumored Sith Lord, Darth Sidious, that Dooku told Obi-Wan about on Geonosis. But perhaps the answer was right in front of them. Darth Sidious, controlling the entire war, just as Dooku said, because it is Palpatine. Lightsabers ignited. Sidious knew he was caught. In his arrogance, Sidious ignited his red saber. There would be a battle here, but it would not take too long. Mace Windu, Plo Koon, and Yoda would work to cut down the Dark Lord, in a duel that saw Ki-Adi-Mundi, Agen Kolar, and Saesee Tiin fall dead to the red saber. But the truth was ultimately revealed, and the Jedi could finally see that they made the right choice to pull out of the war effort, as Palpatine was killed. The war would drag on for a few more months, but the Jedi would not be involved at all. Palpatine's treason, working with the Separatists, was exposed, and the Jedi would slowly separate themselves from the Republic entirely. After allowing a Sith to rise to power so easily, the CIS army was powerful, but it quickly lost the support of any of the people. Grievous took over entirely after Dooku mysteriously disappeared. In reality, Dooku saw Sidious die, saw the people abandon the CIS, saw the Jedi go down a path he always wanted them to take. So, Dooku abandoned the CIS effort, hiding away from the galaxy. When Grievous was finally destroyed by the 501st and the Bad Batch on Collar, the war began to wrap up in the Republic. Padme Amidala, still secretly married to Anakin, would be one of the new leading voices. Anakin was one of the few Jedi who didn't want to leave the Republic, but with Padme to help him, Anakin came to understand it was the right choice. And as the Order settled in on Dantooine, Barriss Offee became a Jedi Knight alongside Ahsoka and Cal, and they all truly earned this rank. They all would hold a special place for Caleb in their hearts, and they all hoped that he was somewhere in the Force, seeing how his friends helped to bring this terrible war to an end. Depa would soon return to the Council, along with Anakin and Luminara. The Jedi were true keepers of the peace instead of soldiers, and they had faith in the new leaders of the rebuilding Republic, as the galaxy would see peace return. And folks, that's our story for today. An idea I came up with, a week ago, and I was kind of like, how can I make this story interesting? So I worked at it for a while, and ultimately I came away with this story that, I'm actually really quite happy with. It's a story where, it's like an episode of the Clone Wars where it focuses on exclusively younglings or Padawans, and I just wanted to take that and make it, war-ending, galaxy-wide kind of. Favorite scene was probably like the really sad, heartbreaking one where Caleb is inserted into a war that he's kind of, looked at as a heroic thing, and finds out that maybe Jedi children shouldn't be involved in war. It's one of the weirdest parts of it all. One of the parts, or just things in general, that makes you look at the Jedi in a weird way, right? So, also, I am getting over it. You can probably all tell because my voice is cracking and just not there fully. It probably sounds... I remember some of the earliest comments I ever got on this channel were just like, dude, you sound like you're crying sometimes. And it was because my mic was horrifically bad, and I also just had a cold for a month or something. So, anyways, who cares? Whatever. It was funny. Hope my next video I'm not I had to stop 4 times just to be because talking for a long time, it's hard. I have the hardest job in the world. Whatever. All right. No one wants to hear me complain. All right, I'm getting out of here. Appreciate you guys watching. As always, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.
Okay, that's actually pretty fun to learn about. All right. All right. Having this. No. No. It's here. Well, let me finish this it. Wait, that's a cool trick. Might want to use later on. I'll probably want to do some more shading around ears and whatnot. Maybe like eh. That. Nah, we'll leave it alone like that. Alright. Ooh, okay. This looks fucking cool. I could have done a shield better, but maybe next time if I if I make another character that does have a shield, I'll actually look up some shield some references to make a better shield. Anyway, other than that, this looks cool. I mean, glowing shield like this. Pardon me. Oh, I was color shading on the wrong. Oh well. Anywho. Let's see here. Anything to do? Fix up. Alright, maybe some shading around here. Around the thigh area. Eyes. Alright. Let me the next video. Next Oh, neck crack. Alright.
Gen Z absolutely refuses to work the same way boomers did, but why? Why so against it? A recent survey found that 72% of Gen Z workers have quit or strongly considered quitting their job if the job wasn't flexible. Another found that Gen Z is asking for way more money than boomers did, with 55% of them negotiating job offers compared to 42% for boomers. The same study found on average that Gen Z expects a 10% annual raise, even without a promotion, which was 42% higher than what boomers expected when they were asked the same question. Does Gen Z expect too much at work, or are they the first generation to really hold corporations accountable for what's theirs? Well, I looked at a lot of data and I think I have the answer. The baby boomer generation, born approximately between 1946 and 1964, entered the workforce during a time of fairly unprecedented economic growth. Between 1950 and 1973, U.S. productivity nearly doubled and real wages grew steadily alongside with it. A high school diploma was often enough to secure a stable, upwardly mobile employment. In return for strong loyalty and long hours, employers offered job security, beautiful pensions, healthcare benefits, and a clearly defined path to retirement. This was the foundational structure of the mid-20th century labor contract. Boomers were taught both culturally and economically that hard work over time would be rewarded. Pay your dues is literally how it would play out. Long tenures, minimal job hopping, and deference to hierarchy was part and parcel with that era. In 1983, the median tenure for a private sector worker was nearly a decade. Today, that number is closer to 4 years, and for Gen Z in their early careers, It's often between 1 to 2 years. A key reason for this long-term commitment was the promise of retirement security. Defined benefit pension plans, which was the norm for private sector employees in the 1980s, was rewarded by those who stayed the course. The longer you remained, the more generous the payout was. This pension structure was explicitly designed to discourage mobility and incentivize loyalty. Promotions were performance-based, but also
What is loyalty anymore to these
career
corporations?
ladders were formalized in HR departments, and mentorship often meant climbing behind someone on a predefined path. The implied promise was clear. If you showed up, if you stayed late, if you didn't complain, and you paid your dues, you'd eventually reach financial stability, you'd own a home, you retire with dignity. It's not a bad promise. The contract worked for many. Boomers became one of the wealthiest generations in history, controlling over half of U.S. wealth by 2023, despite representing roughly a fifth of the population. They bought homes young, they benefited from rising asset values, and were somewhat shielded from many modern labor market shocks. Over time, that structure has changed, and Gen Z has taken a different approach to work. As a result, housing, wages, and debt have each moved in ways that materially alter how Gen Z chooses to navigate their career. In 1980, the median home price in the U.S. was approximately between $50,000 and $60,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's roughly $290,000. Yet the actual median home price in 2025 exceeds $420K, according to Federal Reserve data. This gap represents a substantial increase in the cost of home ownership relative to previous generations, especially for younger workers whose early career earnings, which we are about to touch on, have not kept pace. Wage growth has diverged from productivity. Between 1979 and 2021, net productivity in the U.S. increased by nearly 70%, while hourly compensation rose by only 20%, according to the Economic Policy Institute. We also have to talk about students. The average Gen Z borrower carries approximately $20,000 in student loan debt, but many have a much larger debt load, sometimes well into the six figures. Since 1980, the cost of attending a four-year public college in the U.S. has increased by over 180% after adjusting for inflation, far outpacing wage growth, housing, or consumer prices. And as we've touched on in several of the last videos, the U.S. economy today is just not the greatest. Deloitte projects U.S. GDP growth at 1.4% this year and 1.5% in 2026. That's not recessionary, but that's also not that strong. Inflation has chilled, but it's still a tad sticky, holding around 2.8 to 3%. And the job market macro-wise is starting to slip, with some economists putting the odds of a downturn within the next 12 months at roughly 1 in 3. Another thing that is very, very important to note here is that over the past 2 decades, two of the most powerful employee retention tools, pensions and employer-provided healthcare, have fundamentally changed. In 1980, over 60% of private sector workers had access to a defined benefit pension. Today, that number is less than 15%. The majority have shifted to a defined contribution plan like the 401k, which transfers both the risk and the responsibility more so to the worker. Healthcare coverage has also followed a somewhat similar path. Rising costs, more narrow networks, and increased employee cost sharing have eroded its value as a very big loyalty incentive. In many cases, many of the benefits once tied to long-term tenure have become somewhat unstable and somewhat conditional, which further weakens the rationale for somebody to stay at one company for their entire career. Now, you might be wondering, does it not always feel super unfair for the youngest generation? Of course, perceptions of unfairness are not unique to Gen Z. Historically, younger generations have often viewed the socioeconomic landscape that they inherit as imbalanced. An obvious example is millennials with 2008. What distinguishes Gen Z is the volume and the clarity of comparative data available in real time. Through social media, salary transparency, and platforms that track corporate metrics, younger workers can now see instantly and globally how their outcomes are comparing to their peers, to their managers, and to past generations. This constant stream of data makes disparities even more visible than ever before. At the same time, institutional trust has declined across all age groups, but especially among younger cohorts. When trust erodes, systems feel less fair, even if processes remain somewhat the same. Gen Z has entered the workforce during a period of inflation, of wage pressure, and technological disruption, all while being compared to older generations who may have benefited from earlier periods of economic expansion. As a result, they operate with a heightened sense of awareness of when systems no longer serve them, and they are more willing to adapt accordingly. So how does Gen Z actually approach and think about work? Well, firstly, Gen Z just values work differently in general. According to Deloitte's 2024 Global Gen Z survey, younger workers consistently prioritize flexibility, well-being, and alignment with personal values over traditional markers like time and role or title advancement. Career paths have become more fluid and less like linear ladders as a result. According to Randstad, Gen Z changes jobs nearly 3 times faster than Gen X or boomers during their early careers. Where earlier generations were encouraged to pursue advancement through internal loyalty and tenure, younger workers are more likely to seek external opportunities that provide more immediate increases in compensation and scope. The labor market has evolved to reward lateral mobility, and Gen Z's behavior reflects that reality. It's not a sure thing to wait your turn and earn more. That's just not how it works anymore, and Gen Z's approach to employment and their ambition to gain leverage early shows that they understand that. Again, as we touched on in the beginning of this video, 55% of Gen Z reported that they negotiate their job offers compared to 42% of baby boomers. Among those who engaged in negotiations, 79% reportedly received a better offer. Some view that as audacious, but honestly, Gen Z is just more likely to advocate for themselves earlier in their career than previous generations. Let's also not forget that young professionals' orientation towards how they view work was probably shaped by long-term observations of how companies treated their parents. They may have saw their parents or caregivers be at a company for decades, only to just get laid off or have their benefits reduced or have their career stall out because of a financial downturn. It's just business, as they say. In some cases, loyalty to just one employer did not actually result in a predictably upward career. It was just a risk to stay and depend on something for too long. The career moves that Gen Z makes seem to recognize that there are a lot of external factors, whether it's restructuring, automation, or macro shifts that just override personal performance or effort. Even if you work hard, sometimes it doesn't matter. As a result, Gen Z is more likely to interpret stability as the ability to remain mobile, adaptable, and independent of any one institutional structure. The motto is staying ahead of the game, and you could make a really good argument that that's kind of necessary in today's environment. Put simply, they gotta do what they gotta do. And if that means going from job to job, if that means aggressively negotiating, if that means ruffling some feathers earlier in their career, it is purely based on their assessment of the economy and them protecting their interests. They refuse to work like boomers because if they work like boomers, they may not get what boomers got. It's as easy as that. It's a different world with different incentives and different outcomes, so Gen Z's working differently. If Gen Z believed that there was a golden pot waiting for them at the end of the rainbow and the path to get this golden pot was proven, I mean, they would just do that. They would stay at a company if they knew that they were gonna get that golden pot. But if they were told it might be there, it might not be there, I don't know, why would they trek all the way over there? Now, the one thing I do want to say is that while Gen Z is facing a tough economy, there's still plenty of opportunity out there, and plenty of young workers are showing example after example that you can be extremely successful much faster in your career and redefine what your career means a lot differently than other generations. If you're Gen Z, just understand that taking an alternative approach towards your career does not mean you're not going to be successful. How people work and how people are compensated is changing at an insane pace. There's plenty of ways to arrive at where you're trying to get to. You're just going to have to adapt to this very different landscape. But you do also have a ton of different tools at your disposal to help you get there that did not exist just a few years ago. And if you're in the older generation, please try to understand why Gen Z moves the way they do. It's simply an adaptation mechanism. It's not simply a matter of entitlement or laziness or any sort of basic explanation you could throw at it. It's an approach that they're using to just live a good life. So try and meet them where they are.
Exactly. Let's see here. Yeah, because sometimes the labor market says it's just absolute shit. It is. And the only reason why I got the current job I have now is that I've worked at the exact pretty much the exact same job in just a different company. And this company that I now work for recognize my situation and say, hey, you pretty much already been trained and got the skills to be working immediately. So we're gonna interview you and just fast track the hiring process. And that's pretty much how I got hired. I pretty much explained my situation, what job I left, the kind of job, what they did, and whatnot. They recognized the value of the company and got me hired on pretty much immediately. It's not gonna happen. It's obviously it's not gonna happen all the time. Obviously, different standards and whatnot. But yeah. All right, all right, all right. Ooh. I'm not sure about the shading here, but kind of like it. But it does like put some depth into it. Not just like flat colors. Like okay. All right. There we go. And you. So I'm gonna do a little bit more shading. Just I'll put on another video. Okay. There we go. All right. Now we're gonna. All right, come on, video, load, load. Ow, ow, ow. There we go. All right.
Insolent pest! Why don't you just die already?
Ha! In your dreams, egghead. Long as there's creeps like you around, I'll never die!
It's pretty much as long as last type of all the episodes.
Huh? Ah, my head's killing me. Gotta find Tails. Huh? Hey, have you seen my friend around here? Little fox, two tails. What is this place exactly? Not really sure how I got... All right. Y'all don't decorate much here, do ya? Ever heard of throw pillows? Oh, that's us! I didn't know you guys were fans. Oh, that was today! Kinda weird you were filming this. What? What was that? What the hell was that? What's happening here?
Isn't it obvious? You're dead.
Dead? Yeah, no. Thanks for the movie night. I'm getting out of
You
here.
can't leave. You died.
I did not die. I never die.
I'm afraid you do. And it wouldn't be the first time. Welcome to your eternity. Our eternity.
Ooh.
What is this? You think you're invincible, but I've seen all your deaths. Every spike trap, every bottomless pit, every single drowning. That's what we are. We're your extra lives.
All my deaths? What are you talking about? I think I'd remember dying 100 times.
For every death-defying stunt you barely pull off, there's been a path where you didn't. Every time we die, that path is severed, and the universe reverts itself to let us try again. One of us gets to keep living, but those deaths aren't forgotten. All of us that have failed are sent here to be observers to the life that we could have lived. I've been watching you since you beefed that skateboard jump you did last week. I choked on an onion ring.
Hold on, so I'm just stuck here to watch a me that didn't die?
You would be, if you hadn't spent our final chance. With every new death I witnessed, this counter has gone down. We may be your extra lives, but you were our last.
No! You're nuts! I don't care how endless this void is. I'm finding a way out. I bet if I run faster than I ever have before,
You
then...
think every single one of us hasn't tried that?
So what? You've all just given up? You're gonna sit around here watching TV till the end of time? We're Sonic the Hedgehog! We've dismantled space stations, saved entire planets, fought gods beyond the bounds of reality!
Not all of us! Not everyone has been as lucky as you. Then I guess that's what makes me different. Let him tire himself out. We always do. Tails?
You really worried me there.
Oh my god, what happened? I'm not dead, am I?
No, well, your heart did stop for a few.
What?
But you're all good now.
Nothing a little prow or polish couldn't buff out, eh? Where's Eggman? Did you finish him off?
No, you took a pretty nasty hit back there, so we had to retreat. You actually might want to take it easy for a while. I would
Take
want
it
you
easy?
to-
Not if that egg basket is still causing trouble.
Oh, do you feel well enough
You
to?
bet I do. Not like I haven't run off splitting concussive migraines before. Let's go!
Oh no.
Sonic! You okay?
Did you see that? Down there!
The spikes?
Huh.
Are you sure you're all good to go?
Yeah, let's keep moving.
Hello, Sonic! Glad to see you made a speedy recovery. Back for another beating?
Eggman, you're scrambled! No.
What's his problem?
Oh no.
What is going on? Shadow?
Looking for a race?
No thanks, I'll walk.
Hey, Sonic! Up for some training?
Maybe some other time. Gotta go.
Sonic!
Whoa.
I've got a theme park ticket with your name on it!
Sonic, wanna go fishing?
I feel bad for Sonic.
Sonic! I made hot cocoa!
No, thank you.
It's been a few days now. Are you sure you don't want to get back out there?
I had this dream after the accident. I was stuck in this endless, dark place. There were all these phantoms of myself. Said they were all the ways I've died. That it's happened hundreds of times. That it had just happened to me. I'd be stuck with them for eternity.
Oh.
When I woke up, though, I kept seeing them. I can't stop seeing them. They're everywhere.
Well, hey!
Sonic has PTSD.
Don't tell me not to let bad thoughts get you down. We always find a way.
But they said that I was the last. That I'm the last life. After I died, there would be no more do-overs. That you and all my friends would have to go on without me. I can't just let that happen. Everyone counts on me.
Well, you aren't doing us any good by sitting here.
Yeah. I just don't know what to do.
I've got a neuropacification device. A therapy machine. It might help clear your mind a bit. It'll let you focus on what's important. What do you think?
Well, you've saved my butt this many times. Let's try it. Wow, you set all this up quick.
Just focus on the nightmare, and the machine will do the rest.
Focus on the nightmare. Huh? Oh, hey, bud.
How are you feeling?
I'm all right. When did we get down here? Am I getting a massage?
Can you tell me about your dream again?
What dream?
Nothing. Wanna go stop Eggman?
What? That creep's still at it? Come on, let's go break some eggs.
I'll catch up.
Hmm? Oh no,
Sorry,
Tails?
Sonic, but this is the only thing that seems to work. At least you're back now.
What the fuck? Oh, that's fucked. That is fucked. Holy shit.
I'll never die.
Half doors are one of the rarest occurrences in all of
There we go.
Minecraft. A relic from the game's earliest versions, they require a very unique set of conditions in order to appear. If a door was placed before the year 2012, there's a chance it can eventually corrupt into a half door. There's also an extremely rare chance it can happen when Minecraft's world generation glitches. It's not a visual error. Half of the door is actually missing collision, meaning you can stand on top of it and it's still completely functional. Seeing one in modern survival Minecraft is unheard of, But could one of these extremely rare half-doors still exist on 𝙂𝙗, the oldest Anarchy server in Minecraft? Despite the server being nearly 15 years old and countless other glitches happening here, a half-door has never been documented before. The odds were slim, but I wanted to investigate, and what followed was months of research, first-hand exploration on the server itself, and collaboration with others into an extremely deep rabbit hole. And what we found was completely unexpected. So join me today as we embark on the quest for 𝙂𝙗's rarest block, the half-door. So does a half-door actually exist on 𝙂𝙗? It's one of the only servers left in operation that has the proper conditions for one to survive. Well, my curiosity about this mystery actually started in a place older than 𝙂𝙗.
Oh?
My very first Minecraft world from 2010. In the 15 years I've played on this world, a lot of strange things have happened to it. Trees with bizarre leaf patterns, chunk errors, lava and water existing directly next to each other, and of course, doors from some of my oldest builds being split in half. I'd always found these corrupted doors to be interesting, but never really looked into the root cause of why they were like this until a few months ago when I did some research. I discovered there are actually two ways for a half-door to be created in survival Minecraft. The first is corruption, which is what happened to my doors, and it requires a very specific set of circumstances. A door had to have been placed in a world before March 1st, 2012, when Java Edition 1.2 released. But then, those chunks had to remain unloaded for over 2 years until version 1.8. Upon loading them in this version, there's a chance they will become half-doors based on which direction they were facing and the orientation of their hinges. This corruption was possible until 2018, when the update Aquatic released. If a 2012 door is loaded in any version past this one, the corruption cannot happen. The second method is through world generation glitches. There is an extremely rare chance that doors in village houses can generate as half-doors, but this has only been documented on a handful of seeds, and it seems to only happen in modern savanna and taiga villages. While the debug stick can be used in creative mode to make half-doors, the only way to get them in survival involves one of these two methods. This is when I realized that 𝙂𝙗 was old enough for a half-door to potentially exist there. Could one of them have actually survived over a decade of destruction? It was possible, but the odds were very slim. Nearly all bases from the year 2012 and earlier were destroyed on the server a long time ago. The majority of them from this time period were found less than 100,000 blocks away from spawn. In the present day, everything in this region has been world downloaded and picked clean by countless individuals. Even if one managed to survive in a small outpost or a village, it likely would have been documented at least once. There are countless videos and screenshots of glitched nether portals and other oddities on the server, but absolutely zero evidence of a half-door. It's also possible that the server's admin, Housemaster, loaded all of 𝙂𝙗's chunks when updating the server back in 2012, which would mean none of the doors ever had the chance to become corrupted. Taking all of these variables into account, I was extremely skeptical that a half-door could have survived on 𝙂𝙗, let alone ever existed, but I still wanted to look into it. But with a mystery this complex and a server as massive as 𝙂𝙗, I needed some help. The first person I got into contact with was 𝙂𝙗 historian Turban. For many years, he's run an archive server where world downloads of famous bases and locations throughout 𝙂𝙗's history are preserved exactly as they were before being destroyed. I asked him if he ever encountered a corrupted half-door in the past. To paraphrase what he told me, he said he had never seen a legitimate one before. He would occasionally encounter them on older world downloads given to him, but this was simply the result of his archiving process. It did not reflect the true condition of the doors on 𝙂𝙗, so while he had no proof of them existing, he still wanted to help with the search. We both reached out to well-known base hunters and some of the oldest members of the community to see if any of them had ever encountered one. A few claimed to have seen them before, but nobody had actual solid evidence such as screenshots or coordinates. While the rumor of them existing was enough to keep us searching, exploration alone wasn't going to work. We could spend the next 10 years checking every single door on the server and it still wouldn't be enough. So at this point, I knew there was only one person with the skills, data, and technical knowledge to help us. 2B2T legend 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚𝙧𝙖𝙩, the mastermind behind NOCOM, one of the most powerful exploits in Minecraft history. Using this exploit, a select few were able to track all player movements in real time and remotely download every chunk being loaded by the server. This allowed them to stockpile a massive amount of analytical data about 2B2T, which meant they knew how many copies of specific blocks existed on the server. Since the majority of this information was unavailable to the public, I messaged 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚 about my research into half doors. I asked if it would be possible for him to search the NOCOM data for any evidence of their existence. He agreed to help me, but needed some time to put together a script to search the data. During the NOCOM exploit, over 255,000 doors were recorded on the server. Out of all of them, 99.5% of them were considered normal, with both halves attached to each other. While the remaining 0.5% had no matching door half, it did not mean they were legitimate. During the exploit, when chunks were downloaded remotely, they were often incomplete. So many times only half of a door ended up in the dataset, even if the other half was attached on the actual server. This made the majority of the potential doors in the dataset false positives, so 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚 refined the search. He identified all remaining door halves that were directly connected to blocks of air directly above or below them. This narrowed it down to 414 potential doors, but there was another problem. If a chunk containing a door was recorded once, and then again at a later date with the door missing, it would incorrectly be labeled as a half door in the dataset. Once again, a false positive. So, refining the search one last time, 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚 looked for half doors connected to air that had been recorded twice within 10 seconds of each other. With this new criteria, I was given good news and bad news. Out of the 255,000 doors that were recorded, 16 of them were potentially a legitimate half door and were listed at specific coordinates. As incredible as this was, he then gave me the bad news. Many of these could still be false positives, and on top of that, all of the data was recorded 4 years ago. In that time, the server has gone through a long period of destruction, with many old bases and relics being lost to time. The odds of one of these 16 candidates being real was still extremely low.
Okay.
I began searching immediately. I volunteered to check out the closest coordinates, while 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚 convinced other hunters to join in the search. Upon logging into 2B2T, I went into the Nether to get out as quickly as possible. This set of coordinates was actually under 100k overworld, so it didn't take too long to get there. Upon arriving, I could tell the place was extremely old, but there had been some recent player activity. Sadly, upon reaching the exact coordinates, whatever had been here was destroyed, but judging from the surrounding terrain, I figured this would have been a false positive anyway. I just hoped that some of the other coordinates were legit. Hunters were checking the other chords on the list, but were unable to find anything. After 12 of the 16 coordinates had been checked with no success, it was starting to feel like there were no half doors on 2B2T. One of the most active hunters, Hard-Boiled Megs, had been working overtime to check the remaining coordinates, traveling to multiple quadrants in a single day and posting the results. Just as we had started to accept defeat, one morning, she sent us this.
More shadows real quick.
Of the 16 coordinates, one of them was real. The first ever recorded half door in 2B2T history. Let me explain why this is even more insane than it seems. Not only did only one exist on the server, but it generated in a way that has never been documented on any Minecraft world. A tree had merged with a village house when both generated many years ago, likely causing the bottom half of the door to become a block of air. I mentioned earlier that glitched half doors have only been found in modern savanna and taiga villages. This one was in a village that was much older, since the roads were gravel instead of dirt. This proved that this extremely rare glitch could actually happen in much older versions of the game. And what's even crazier is that 2B2T player Cody Smile.
It happened in the Minecraft Pocket Edition to me when I was still playing Minecraft on a tablet.
Had passed through this very same village only a month ago, not even realizing it contained the rarest block on the entire server. This half door truly was one of a kind. Hardboiled Megs took a world download so that the door could be preserved even if it was eventually destroyed. Thanks to the hard work from everyone involved,
Nice.
the mystery had been solved. So is this truly the only half door in existence on 2B2?
I actually drew it in the signature.
It seems to be, but you never know. Maybe another one will be found millions of blocks out in some random village someday. Or perhaps a method of creating them could
let's sign this off.
future, but for now, the quest for 2B2T's rarest block was a success.
There we go. And what day is it actually? Alright. I also like to date it as well. Always date your art, so just in case if it gets stolen or taken, you actually have proof that you actually drew it yourself. You know, it doesn't really look as pretty. I like to date my art. And I like to date my art. Anyway, that being said, I think I'm just... let me save this real quick. And let me export it. NG. What should we call... What should we call her? Like kind of Tetris box. I guess I kind of made it inspired by Sage from Sonic Frontiers. The way Tetris box look. So I can't call it Saber. How about fuck? What do we call it also? Where the fuck is... Why is it? There it is. But, what do I call this one? Ugh. Kind of like, not malware, that's from Ben 10. A shield, right? corrupt. More specifically, corruption. Because fuck it, why not? Alright, alright. There we go. And I'm quite happy with everything. Everything that we did. I'm quite happy about it. Let me move everything real quick. Please, come on. Thank you. Alright. And allow me to move this over here and alright. Okay. That being said, I'm quite happy with the finished piece that we made. I'm definitely gonna go back and gonna make another character challenge and see what we can make out of it. But they'll be interesting what we make. That being said, I just want to say that anyway, thank everyone. Just thank everyone who joined today's stream. I hope you enjoyed the art stream. I enjoyed it myself as well. And also just what was again? Oh yeah. Also thank everyone for watching today's YouTube pod. And I'm not exactly sure what I want to do like with an art career overall, but I have a few ideas what I want to do. Maybe a manga, maybe an anime with Blender. But we'll see where it goes. That being said, I'm Brandon Blitz. I'm a variety streamer. I stream lots of video games, ChatGPT, as well as I draw art. I do coding, and hopefully I'll be doing 3D modeling sooner or later for everyone here. I probably could, again, I'm gonna probably do coding first hour of the variety stream on Thursday to be coding, just to get some coding practice in, and then we're gonna do like a continue with our Halo Let's Play and see, and also get some ideas from Minecraft. I'm still like working on that a bit. And that being said, I'm just gonna be relaxing for the rest of the night and probably just gonna have dinner. And on that note, I get going now, Blitzies. Bye bye, matinee.